Mr Evans, I want to thank the member for Gordon for calling this debate and for the very thorough way in which he presented his opening speech. It's good to have such expertise in the chamber when we're talking about such an important sector as farming. I also want to welcome the new minister to his place. The former minister, the member for Camborne and Redruth, was known to many of us and commanded respect across both sides of the House for his work. Indeed, many of his statements since he left the government have also commanded respect from members on both sides of the House as well, and I hope that his honesty will continue. There has been a trend of declaring interest in this debate, and I also need to do so, not because I have a farm tucked away, but because my wonderful baby sister is a rare breed sheep farmer in Cornwall, and she does a fantastic job, and she's got some chickens too. It's really important to do that. We've had a really important debate so far with good contributions from both sides of the House here. My honourable friend from Bristol East, we might not have quantity on this side, but we certainly have quality, and her contributions around agroecology is something that I will come to in a moment. Farming plays such a vital role in promoting sustainability and nurturing biodiversity. Farming has shaped our landscapes through continual management, creating a patchwork of unique environments across the uplands and lowlands and adapted to the pressures of a growing population. We need to make sure that we are providing our farming communities with the resources they need to continue that stewardship of our agricultural land, to make sure that they are well resourced and incentivised to continue to fight climate change and to reduce the carbon emissions of their activities. And that is something that has been said by effectively nearly every member in this debate so far about what type of new system we are moving to after we leave the European Union. Farmers are absolutely key in tackling climate change, and we must welcome the work that has been done by farmers across the country, but also recommit to supporting them in continuing that work in the future. The National Trust, who is the largest private landowner in the UK, have called for the introduction of a new environmental land management system based on the principle of delivering public goods. Introducing this system would help adapt to climate change, improve water quality, heritage conservation and public access. But the system must be supported by long-term funding based on an independent assessment of need, alongside the provision of good quality advice for farmers, safeguards against the import of low-standard food that has been mentioned by a number of members today, and a complementary approach to improving productivity and a strong regulatory baseline. The way farmers manage their farms can have either a positive or negative impact on the surrounding environment. And we need to support those farmers that are taking the extra steps to protect not only their local environment, but the national environment as well, especially through a decent financial and information support system. The NFU argues that if farmers are struggling financially, the ability to prioritise environmental objectives would be nearly impossible. This is where I would like to highlight the importance of linking the plans to reform agriculture with the existing challenges farmers and land managers face today. We all know of stories of farmers struggling financially, and we all need to make sure that the new regulatory environment that's being put in place for farmers supports farmers, both in large landholdings and small landholdings, to make sure that they are sustainable, because we need farming to be sustainable, both environmentally and economically. We cannot ignore the need to invest in new technologies and innovative infrastructure to provide farmers with the right system that are both efficient and work towards reducing their carbon footprint. Many new innovative methods have been spoken about today, and it's important that we take the public with the farming community as well, especially when it comes to new genetic engineering and new technological interventions on our farming estate, because it's important that we carry public confidence with those new methods as well. Farmers should have access to the necessary data and information to not only link farming methods with the environment, but also to allow for continued exposure to the most up-to-date methods and environmental land management strategies. Partnership is key in this. Encouraging farmers to engage in agri-environment schemes has to be done alongside a commitment to environmental targets. The government has a responsibility to lay out these environmental targets, especially in legislation like the Agriculture Bill, which the opposition believes currently is missing such commitments. I'll be grateful if the Minister could set out when he expects the Agriculture Bill to come back to this place. I know he's new in office, but I'm sure that was one of the briefings that he would have been given in his new place. For centuries, farmers and land managers have closely engaged with ecosystems, using the land and nature around them to build a home for their livestock and to create businesses. Farmers understand more than most the interdependent relationship agriculture has with the environment, not only because of their daily interactions with nature, but because climate change has and will continue to impact them directly in what they do. With the necessary support systems, there would undoubtedly be a growing number of farmers turning to agroecology. The Land Workers Alliance has spearheaded some great work around agroecology and making it a viable farming method for more through initiatives such as the Whole Farm Agroecology Scheme. Some key examples of the impressive nature of agroecology is its integrated production on mixed farms, recycled biomass and reducing waste, using byproducts from one process as inputs in others. This acts to optimise nutrient availability, which is done over time through using fertility generated on the farms instead of using artificial fertilisers. And that's a theme that came up from a number of different interventions about how we reduce the amount of fertilisers used on our land with new methods. And with the optimal use of sunlight, space, water and nutrients and synergistic interactions between biological components, fewer resources are lost. These practices act to both conserve and encourage biodiversity, both within the agricultural species and in the wider environment, creating diverse ecosystems which are more resilient to climate change. A great example of agroecology is agroforestry. And actually, it's a topic that surprisingly hasn't been mentioned as much in this debate as I was expecting. Agroforestry includes traditional practices that are easily recognised in the English and British countryside, such as hedgerows, as well as new innovative systems such as silverable cropping, a method of growing alleys of productive trees through arable land. If more farmers were supported with accessible information, relevant data, and long-term funding, multi-year funding, more farmers could adopt agroecological approaches. The benefits would not only directly affect and benefit the farmer's land, but also help fight climate change. The Soil Association have said that integrating trees into farms at a significant scale could dramatically increase the amount of carbon sequestered on farms compared to monoculture of crops or pastures, indeed a point raised by the Honourable Member for Gordon in his opening remarks. The Committee on Climate Change have highlighted that the conversion of just 0.6% of agricultural land to agroforestry could contribute significantly to meeting the fifth carbon budget by 2030. Alongside carbon emissions, we need to deal with soil erosions, and it is absolutely one of the big issues facing the agriculture industry, and has been raised by my honourable friend from Bristol East and my West Country neighbour from Taunton Dean. This costs England and Wales £1.2 billion annually, and it's a cost we can't afford to continue paying. Trees integrated into arable settings have been proven to reduce soil erosion by up to 65%. Agriculture is unique when it comes to dealing with the challenges of improving air quality and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, because it can remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it in vegetation and generate low-carbon renewable energy. It also has a really important role in upstream flood prevention as well, which has been hinted at by members today. This is why this debate is so important. The interdependence of the environment and farming is clear, but unless the right structures, funding and support is provided for those working the land, we will not see the much improved benefit to the environment that we are all looking for. The environment must be at the heart of our future agricultural policy. Public subsidies have been used to fund some destructive food and farming practices for too long. And like my honourable friend from Bristol East, I am no fan of the common agricultural policy, but that's why we must take time to ensure what replaces it doesn't replicate or create new problems in the systems that we're introducing. The opposition is pleased to see pesticide reduction, improving soil health, cutting climate change emissions and supporting wildlife in the government's to-do list. But to deliver these in a way that reverses current damage, we will need adequate funding and bold ambition, including clear targets. And I'd like to ask the Minister how he intends to do that, given the scale of cuts that we're expecting in terms of the subsidies after we leave the European Union. In recognising the interdependence of modern farming and the environment, a fresh approach to agriculture cannot work by itself. The government must set appropriate visions to protect against unfair buying practices and to promote fairness in the supply chain. The EU regulations that currently protect our environment must be maintained, and we should look to build on them true. For the avoidance of doubt, I'd like to invite the Minister to confirm that it's his personal as well as ministerial position that environmental protections must not be reduced after Brexit. And to ask him whether he will reconfirm that any new trade deals which undermine our green standards or animal welfare must be rejected, or the government would be turning its back on British farmers. This is a really important debate, and members from right across the House have raised some really appropriate and timely issues. And with that, I will sit down so the Minister can respond to those points. Thank you.